Yeah, I wanted to ask a question, which was like you said about your kids. You said about having healthcare through your wife's, was it wife's
Wife's job.
employer? Wife's job.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, but obviously you would rather you like you and your kids just had healthcare if you needed it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like simple
Much,
as.
much, much better. That would be a much better
Yeah.
thing on a multitude of levels.
Right.
So one of the things that, um, like, I wrote a paper for my comp exams, and it was like, and I put this in the doc. The healthcare system is designed to be shitty.
Yeah.
At this point,
Yes.
it wasn't ever designed to be all that good. But like what happened with Obamacare, it was slowly dismantled once they took out the single payer demand or whatever. I don't remember the exact term, and then they just slowly dismantled it until it was ridiculously ineffective at providing healthcare at a reasonable price to enough people. It was never designed to cover undocumented Americans. It was never designed to do a lot of things in terms of like addressing systemic inequality within healthcare. But now it's not even designed to provide healthcare at a reasonable price to a lot of people. Now it's literally just a festering sore that makes it untenable on multiple levels.
Can I ask you to kind of give us a bit of a history to Obamacare, because we just had in chat someone pointing out that actually like it was Romney Care first and like all of this, which is like in line with what we're talking about today with like, it's a policy that matters. Don't, not to get overinvested in kind of a politician's personality. Obamacare has kind of an interesting history in that regard, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is to think about the fact that America has several presidents. I don't remember the names off beat. I think it was Truman, Wilson, and somebody else had tried that was their thing. Clinton, to try to do some type of socialized healthcare system. And every time the people have rejected it. The people have rejected it greatly because of capitalist propaganda and the investment in conservative ideology in the states, but they've rejected it. And it speaks to a core problem of just getting leftists anything across in America, which is how far the general population is from those ideologies. Then we get to Obama. I'm doing a love video in a couple of weeks, just a good old fashioned Black love video. And I'm talking about Obama because it's a fascinating story that I think we haven't, there's so much meat to that bone. But long story short, he came in with such a mandate that he knew he was going to get something. And it was like, okay, what can I get with the least amount of political fallout?
Right.
And what we ended up with was this essentially very Republican conservative.
Yeah.
It was Mitt Romney's plan.
Yeah.
A healthcare plan that was designed to improve access more than anything. 1 second, Joe. My wife is messaging me.
Yeah, no worries. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. I guess we'll get back on what FD has to say about that in a sec. But like, just to be clear, in case anyone is confused on this, like, we're not calling Obamacare a non-reformist reform. It's just pertinent to the history of healthcare in America.
Yeah, I would call it a non-reformist reform. Be honest.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay. Okay. No.
No, I'm sorry. I got that backwards.
Please tell me that. No,
I got that backwards. I'm sorry. No.
Oh, okay.
Obamacare is definitely a reform that was
reform.
Am I saying this backwards? It was definitely designed to not do a lot.
So that's the original impression that Mule had for the what it
That's what. That's what I thought. Non-reformist reform.
I got a little too hot.
Okay, you can also call it
one example.
Another way you can call it is revolutionary reform. So maybe that would be a more clear. Yeah. These are the same terms. Anyways.
Or if you want to call it just a revolutionary policy, like it would cause a big enough shift. But an example that in the Wikipedia article, again, like they gave an example of reformist reforms, which I think is what we call Obamacare, and people say hate crime laws have been an identified example of reformist reform because they add punishing power to institutions, often by including more money for local law enforcement, right? So they're just expanding the power of police rather than doing actually anything to like help people get on better, at least, or whatever other approach you would want to take. And they also got police body cameras have been identified as a reformist reform. I think that's a really good one because it's just like, what the fuck is that supposed to really do? Come on,
Right?
Like
when they can just
non-lethal.
Yeah, they can turn it on and off. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The body cams malfunction.
Yeah. So weird how that happens. It reminds me of when what was it called? Baked Alaska had his selfie camera off only for the like minute and a half where he got maced by Antifa. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. You filmed like 8 hours of Charlottesville and turned it off for like that so weird. Anyway,
weird.
Keep going, please. Yeah, so okay, so we are on the same page. Obamacare is not a non-reformist reform. Okay,
not a revolutionary reform at all.
Nice.
And so it was designed to increase access, and that is just, we want more Americans to have access to what is essentially healthcare tied to taxable labor, right? That is what we want. So immediately that excludes undocumented Americans immediately, right? Because that is how, that's how it works. You don't have a social security number, yada, yada, yada. And that was never even like, not even on the table from jump, because they knew that wouldn't fly. And neoliberals, Democrats, they didn't really want that shit. So that's like step one. Step two is the issue with healthcare worldwide, not just in America, is inequality. It's a concept I think I put in there called fundamental causes of health inequality, which basically comes down to, when you are poor, even if you have access to healthcare, it doesn't work the same. It doesn't give you the same amount of health that for per dollar, specifically speaking, for a person who is wealthy, because there's a concept called flexible resources, which means that you will have less opportunity to utilize healthcare in a way that serves you versus a person from a higher socioeconomic status. And I'm gonna use a personal example for this. So my oldest son has ADHD. I am super aware. I've done papers on ADHD. My former employer, we did webinars on ADHD. I'm a former educator. You know what I'm saying? So like, I had, because of my education.
Brief interjection. Yes. I'm just putting the link to fundamental cause theories of health inequality in the chat. Links in the chat there.
Awesome. So because of my education, I can go on Google Scholar and read legit medical research on best practices for ADHD children, especially Black boys. So then at my job, I work with medical professionals. So I got to talk to a woman who spent 25 years in DFACS and counseling to ask her about best practices. I got to talk to several child psychologists and to get advice for free. I got, let's say, a dozen free consultations from experts in the field before I ever got a appointment with my doctor. So then when I got into my doctor, and then my doctor knows I'm educated, and my doctor knows I have good health care, yada, in my background, et cetera. So my doctor's gonna respond to me in a certain way, and it becomes this compounding privilege. And I'm saying that as a Black man in America, that access to education and a career path gave me all these things that other little Black boys in my same community, like literally, because I live in a Black neighborhood, but it's not like Atlanta's unique. I'll leave that for another video. But other kids in my community, other kids in my son's school, which is a predominantly Black school, would not have had they'd have had the same access to the same doctor, literally the same doctor, but would not have gotten the same treatment, no matter what that doctor's political principles are, no matter how many critical race theory books that doctor has read. At some point in time, his implicit biases will kick in, and he will treat that poor Black family, that poor Black mother that may come in without a father with their child, and all these other judgment come in, and then that child's on medication immediately, as opposed to maybe cognitive behavioral therapy. And then like, I'm not poo-pooing medication for ADHD, but there are best practices papers written about the overuse of medication in children under 5, yada, yada, yada. I'm kind of rambling, but the point I'm trying to get at is that is how fundamental causes of inequality serve to create health disparity.
Yeah.
And
yes.
if your goal is just to make healthcare more accessible and not to address all the other elements within the system that make inequality happen, no matter what you do, the inequality and the lower health outcomes are going to persist, which they have.
Of course.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting thing because it's really similar to trans healthcare in the UK, because we have the NHS, of course, which is a wonderful thing, but I'm just hearing myself back through your mic a little bit there, FD, just so you know. We have the NHS, which just means nominally we're supposed to be getting free healthcare for everyone all the time, but the Tories have been trying to deliberately underfund it, make people more frustrated with it, so more people get on private, and then they can easily manage the switch to private so that they can keep the boot on our necks forever. It's wonderful. And one of the fundamental, like you're saying here, like a disparity is that like one of the first hardest hit areas has been trans healthcare, right? And so for me, I had an awful time trying to get onto HRT, and even I know I'm very privileged because like to get onto it, right? The health, like the waiting list is unmanageable at this point. Like it's over 6 years or some shit if you join today, right? So it's just like people aren't doing that. So people have to crowdfund to get like private healthcare instead for like £300 first appointment. Like I know it's not compared to like American healthcare, but it's compared to free here, it's a pretty big deal. And then I've been able to use that letter from the specialist who I paid to see to go around to my GP and everybody else and be like, okay, give me the stuff because I have the specialist on my side. And I know there's huge, even then there's huge privileges I've benefited from in that process. For example, my whiteness. For example, having an audience who I could turn to when I was like, I need this, and I want to crowdfund. So I'm a privileged position on social media. But even then, at the same time, I am experiencing, the other side of an inequality because trans healthcare at all is like way worse than everyone else's healthcare. There are drugs, spironolactone, finasteride, dutasteride, which they will prescribe cis men for balding, and because it like blocks out a little bit of the testosterone. And if you're a cis man and you're like, hey, I'm worried about my hair, you don't even have to be like, I've got a condition. You just be like, I'm worried about my hair. They just give you that shit so easily. And if you're trans, it's this huge process, right? And that's one of the two parts of estrogen HRT is like you need to block the testosterone. So, it's a huge inequality in how treatment works because of an effort to drive out our socialized medicine.
There's similar things in New Zealand, right? Like we have like public healthcare that is like in a lot of ways a lot better than what many people have all around the world. But for like trans healthcare, there's like all this stuff, like you have to go get a psychological evaluation first, and you have to go to only certain people are able to give that to you. There might not even be one in your city or your area, your town, whatever like that. So you have to do that, and then even like the waiting list, it's like it's free, it's public, but the waiting list to actually get any kind of like any kind of procedures or anything like that could be decades, which is like wild. Like I've had friends go on the waiting list and they're like, okay, cool, well, like I literally have like 40 years to wait for
speaking of like barely any providers, there is one guy in the whole country who does, I don't know if now I think about it, so there was one guy who does bottom surgery for trans men, creating a neo-phallus, right, giving guys dicks, right, good on him. But he's the only guy. He was the only single guy in the whole fucking country. And so literally, like, all the trans men I know, like, when they were talking about bottom surgery, they're literally talking about the same guy. And they're like, and they're talking about, like, their availability and when they're getting theirs booked in. And they're just like, they're commonly saying just like, we realize that we're just talking about this guy's schedule. Like, we're literally just describing this guy's calendar. And now, bottom surgery is not available for trans men at all in the UK. And I don't know if that guy died or if he moved away or fucking what. Like, I'm not saying it's genuinely like all in this guy, because it was a Tory like deliberate move to like remove it as a service. But I don't know if it's that guy retired and they did it at the same time. I don't know what it was, but like, you know, there was one provider and now there's nothing.
Imagine being that guy. You'd be like, I just want to retire, but I can't.
Well, I know someone who literally their surgery was put off by 3 months because that guy was like had like a heart condition.
Oh, wow.
So literally, like he needed some time off. So so the person I know, they put their surgery back.
I can just imagine this, like, you know, like Lethal Weapon kind of thing, like next week's my retirement, but you know, like, they keep pulling me back in.
Oh, this one last dick surgery is really hard. Shit. Oh no. Yeah.
I want to read Ellie's comment because it pertains to American like healthcare system. Ellie says, I see the inequality starkly from how well I was treated before transitioning and having my mom's insurance and being on Medicaid and having fewer queer healthcare options. And so if you don't know, or Medicaid, excuse me, Medicaid. And Medicaid is health insurance essentially for people that can't, it's like you have to be at a certain poverty level. And it can be a pretty severe one. And so typically, I don't know about the options provided. So another thing that maybe people that aren't so like well acquainted with how health insurance, private health insurance works, especially if you're not an American, is that it's not all equal. It's not like you get insurance and now you are insured. One time I signed up for private health insurance on stream. This was a few years ago, and I was showing everyone. I'm like, I want you all to see what the process is like. This is what choice is, and it's all garbage. But there's some that's less garbage than others. But they'll rearrange the ways that it's a monstrosity. But it certainly does not provide equal care for everyone, and it certainly also has certain class-based connotations to it. So if you're like silver level. Yeah. Versus Medicaid, your doctor is going to look at those two people differently.
Yeah. So, man, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
So to kind of like add to Bad Bunny here, what names are we using? Are we using code names? I'm still going to be FD. I don't know what like. And I suck at names in general.
Yeah,
Nicole,
you can call me whatever. Yeah, Nicole's cool. Yeah.
This is why I changed my branding so I'd have my name in my name. So I'm just like, it's
not
fine.
A bad idea.
So
I might do that.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
That is a really good idea, actually.
Because So where was I? So Medicaid and healthcare, even when you have it, it guarantees you access, but there's no like very little standard on what that access actually means. Yeah. And that's the scary thing about Medicaid for all. I think if we were to get it, it would at least satisfy that bottom rung that we're starting on, because it would force one of the things that people don't understand unless you're in it is that people that use Medicaid get the shittiest of care from their providers. And there's multiple reasons for that. Some of it is just general bias of like, serving poor and uneducated people. On certain situations, you will get undocumented Americans, the homeless, the unhoused, the mentally ill. Like that's a lot of that's a portion of who you serve, number one. And then motherfuckers don't even get their money from Medicaid in a timely, reasonable fashion. So if you are a doctor who has read all the books and wants to fight the good fight, and you open up a clinic in the middle of a high needs area, and you're like, I'm going to take Medicaid so I can serve these people, you'll still fuck around and not be able to pay people in your practice because the payouts for Medicaid are they're all fucked up a lot of times. They like you have to do a whole lot of extra work to get your payments in a timely fashion, if you can get them at all. The rules change all the time because certain states, the state I'm in particular, purposefully obfuscate processes and just so many things.
Yeah, that's interesting. So like a clinic might be like, look, we can't risk taking on too many Medicaid cases at once because we just don't know if we're going to be able to pay our staff here. So, when they're looking at what jobs they can take on, they're like, okay, well, we can only fit so many or whatever, which is, something that I hadn't even consider the actual
Literally
like
turns
them
the clip,
invoicing and getting
It's just the
Wow.
practice of invoicing. And then another thing Nicole pointed out is the class-based branding
signifiers,
of
yeah.
the healthcare, where it's like, do you want the bronze, the silver, or the platinum plan?
That's real?
Yeah.
That's real.
There's
That's real. That is
they're
a real
literally
thing here in the States.
They literally name them typically after those metals, like bronze, like gold, like silver, gold, platinum. I don't know. There's sometimes there's silver, like silver something, and then another type of silver. So there's like two different types of silvers or something. And so like, yeah, if you walk in with like the platinum plan and someone else walks in with Medicaid, it's not it's like a caste system of sorts or something. It's like
Someone in the
And
chat saying,
thing,
lol.
I don't even know if the providers know per se until they charge you. Is that makes sense? And then maybe they'll do it. But real talk, it's just for the intrinsic capitalist nature of our country. That is the key. The key ingredient to that bullshit is I want to know I'm paying more for my health care, and I want to have that shit on my documentation. Because people don't know
with the gold flakes in my little pill bottles.
Yeah, and then even then though, the fucked up thing is like, because providers operate in these cartels, you might have I have I don't know, at least it's silver. We have at least silver plan. I still can't use it in certain places. There's still people that don't take my insurance because they're part of the other cartel. They're part of United.
Yeah, the in-network, out-network crap. Yeah, exactly. There's there's so much. I love Bellamy's comment because Bellamy was like, what did you say, Bellamy? Oh my gosh. Bellamy was like, LOL, folks not in the US always make me laugh. Seriously, it's like that? LOL, yes, we're not okay. Yeah, no, it always is wild to be like, I forget how we're so used to this crap that like we don't realize how crappy it is, and then like somebody else is like, what?
Like
that's like a real thing.
My shock there, I just have to state, I am a real politics streamer. I do politics. I might be above, but I do politics. I know about the American healthcare system. It's very bad. But when people actually legit say to me, yes, it's like a Paul Verhoeven movie, I'm like, oh, right. What the fuck? This, you know what I mean? It's like an extra level of like, oh, it's that fucked up. Like, it's okay. Yeah.
And
I want
to add something that FD said earlier about like, that it just guarantees you access, because access really, at a certain point, access isn't even access. So like if my deductible, right, that's, I never mix these up, even though I should know these things by now as an adult, but deductible, that's the one where you have to spend that much out of pocket until your insurance kicks in, right? So like if it's that's what it is, right, chat? Yeah. So like that's a thing with health insurance, at least in America, where if I have the silver plan, my deductible will be like $5,000, which means that I can't actually get my health insurance to cover my health, like a lot of my health care. Sometimes there's weird exceptions, but typically it's like you have to spend a certain amount of money first and then you'll get that health insurance. And this is on top of monthly premiums that you spend just to have it under your name. And if you miss any, then they'll boot you out, and then you can't get back in until the next open enrollment period, which is typically once a year. So it's like, it's like really, it's so like if I have insurance and I'm spending money on my monthly premiums, a lot of times I won't go to the doctor because it's still too expensive, because I can't afford that out of pocket, because I haven't reached my deductible yet to be able to
$5,000 or whatever.
Right.
You basically have to get shot, and then it's like one strong bill up front.
Yeah.
You know, and then you'll let that get sent to a credit people that call you every
collectors,
day.
Collections.
Yeah, you let that get sent to collections, and maybe you'll pay it over the next 10 years. But at least you'll have access to your health care that you're already fucking paying for.
At least I can get the bullet out.
For this year.
But then you'll have
you
that
just have
credit
to plan
score
to get shot every year.
In the beginning of the year. You have to arrange it for the beginning of the year. Yeah. But then your credit score tanks on top of like debt and stuff. And then on top, that's one of the multitude of reasons why people can't really own a home. I mean, other than the fact that real estate prices, so on and so forth. But like, if we're all like loaded up with with debt, and it's all like we can't pay it, Can I just say I fucking fuck credit scores? My God, what a horrible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do they
system.
factor in credit scores when it comes to like health insurance stuff, or
no? Thankfully, that's the one thing.
Okay, because I was gonna say that would be really fucked up.
But your medical bill can affect your credit score, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Great.
So you will always be able to get access to healthcare under Obamacare.
Yeah. You'll always be able to give them money. Yeah.
Yes, but you will accrue significant debt over time, depending on your healthcare needs.
Yeah.
And that is, and the thing, like to show how this was very much a reform, all of that shit existed before Obamacare. All of it. None of that was changed under Obamacare.
That's
all
crazy.
Which is like, and here's the funny thing, like, so Obamacare, when how to explain this? There was research about Obamacare and Obama in general, where basically when Americans were asked would they like socialized healthcare, yes. When Americans were asked would they like Obamacare, no. Completely evenly split along racial lines.
There was some,
and that's kind of the thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to quickly say there's some talk show that did this. They went around and gave people mics to be like, how do you feel about the Affordable Care Act? They're like, I like it. And they're like, what about Obamacare? They're like, no, that's suppressive. It's like, it's the same fucking thing, dude. Anyway, that was hilarious.
And it speaks to, and that's why I think, like, I'm going to, Nancy did a great video. I'm going to talk about Nancy a lot tonight, I see. Their video on American fascism, everybody needs to watch, because you know, and I'm without changing the vibe of the room, certain actions of online leftist discourse focus on dunkable content.
Oh yeah.
You know, and severely miss important history elements, important foundational aspects of how we got here. And where the linchpins of these systems lie to address, you know, actual to provide venues for actual change. So something like Anansi's American Fascism video is super valuable because it gives a nice timeline of how we got here. And one of the things they talk about, and I have my own concept plan around it, is the pull of conservative thought among Americans who, if you ask them about explicit, I think this hasn't put out there. If you ask many Americans about explicit socialist, communist policies one at a time, they're like, "Oh yeah, that."
Yeah.
This is
also true. Most people, just most people in the world, like
literally most people. Yeah,
my girlfriend's dad, who's like just so conservative, but only on the specific topics the TV has been telling him about, right?
Exactly.
Like he's this conservative, okay? He banned me from coming to the house when he found out I was trans. Banned. And it was over a year until he went back on that, right? He has advocated for like free, because we don't get our prescriptions for free, we get like treatment but not prescriptions. He's advocated for like pharmaceuticals to be nationalized without any prompting. We were just talking to him and he was just like, yeah, I just think it should be like this. I think most people are communists, really.
Yeah.
Like everyone wants everyone to just have everything. Everyone wants that, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and I want to co-sign watching Anansi's American Fascism video. Fantastic. Everything from Anansi, just they're so good. Everyone should watch it.
Yeah. It's and so that's basically it. Like, the thing that we have to, if we're talking about policy, revolutionary policy, so we're talking about legit. So I'm getting away from, because St. Andrew has been radicalizing the shit out of me, and I think I'm starting to scare my wife.
That's what we want to hear, to be honest. Yeah,
get your wife on Red Planet. Let's all chat. Let's do it.
Yeah. Planet, you know what I'm saying? And so, but if I get away from my, you know, starting to lean towards anarchist visions of the future, if we're talking about policy, meaning we're voting for it and we're electing officials and shit, that is always going to be black pilled if we don't find, if we don't brand our shit. We have to, like, legitimately conceptualize how do we break the hold of conservative branding that has people literally voting against their best interests, literally talking out both sides of their ass when it comes to explicit policies, because that's what they do. This is proven through research, as Sophie just mentioned. And until we can do that, we are talking about throwing rocks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And as you will soon find out, you cannot defeat an enemy that you cannot see.